Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Gnomoria with yours truly, Inzainia. What we are going to cover in this first part is mechanics. Now, mechanics is a little difficult to wrap your head around for some people. For some people, it's not, and that's great and groovy. But let's go over the basics. All right, first of all, in order to do any mechanics, you must have already previously built a tanker. Here's a tanker station. I've got mine suspended so that they would build all this stuff, but I can unsuspend it. Now, you build a tanker bench, then you assign a person to be a tanker. You do that in population, under professions. If you followed along with one of mine earlier where we were doing the population, you would see that we had a tanker that did all engineering stuff, and that was it. He didn't carry anything, didn't help anybody, didn't do anything except sit at that tanker bench. All right. Over time, and it takes a long time, but over time he will slowly tinker this up. And once the bar gets all the way to here, he gets his first tinkering discovery. These discoveries allow him to build certain things. As you can see, I've got multiples. All this stuff. Number one, tinkers is the only way to get your crossbows and your muskets and your blunderbusses and pistols and all that stuff. So those are in discoveries, and they're all slotted out in different discoveries. Like you'll get the crossbows first, then you'll end up getting the blunderbusses, then you'll get pistols, and you'll get the flintlock pistols, and then you'll get something else. Also, with that, you get the ability to slowly learn more and more stuff to make traps, to make mechanisms, windmills, power supplies, linkage supplies, switches, etc. for all of these. Now, in order to do those, to actually build them, you need to build a machine shop and an engineer shop, and also make sure that somebody in your tinkering line or your artisans, which are the ones that I think I have, my artisans can also do engineering stuff. In the engineering stuff, you got tinkering, machining, and engineering, and mechanic. Tinkering is the act of learning stuff. Machining and engineering is using these two devices. And I think mechanic, if I'm not mistaken, is the ability to turn a switch. So you need that. What I have laid out here is a very basic descriptive setup. This is your windmills. These are all laid flat on this ground. That's it. I laid them all flat on the ground. I have two windmills. I have two linkages. I have a switch, two more linkages, which are just axles, two axles. And then I have a mechanical box. I then have a windmill. This is just stuff that I've built to force people to come over this trap for right now. But I have a windmill. Then I have underneath this, which you can't see because of this, but I have two horizontal axles. Then I have a pressure plate, two more axles, and then a pit trap, a hatch. All right, and these can be used for many things, as you'll soon notice. First of all, you left click on a switch, click copper lever, and then hit pull lever in order to get somebody to come pull it. Now, the mechanical wall has two states, down or up. When this guy comes over and switches it, it will switch it to down. All right, now this is good if you want to let people in, or you want to build a doorway or an impassable wall. I could take two mechanical walls, or one really, and put it right here, or wherever my hallway is, right here where my hallway is, coming in and out. You could block that off with mechanical walls, like say down here, right here. I could put four of them across there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then set them to be powered by windmills. Put a bunch of windmills up here to power them. Run axles to them. And put a switch. And then what I could do is I could send my guy out, pull that switch, and it would block that off. Then nothing would have any way to get in. Nothing could get past them. They can't be destroyed. They can't beat them up. Nothing get past them. Nothing can come through them until I lay them back down. Now that's one use for the mechanical wall. Another is that if you build it under a wall, in other words, if there was another wall on the next sea level above this, like here, let's let the walls up. This entryway right here, see how there's a block above it? If I had put that mechanical wall right here in the entryway, say I did a bunch of them, and something came inside here, and I flipped that switch and they all went up, exactly what you think would happen. It will crush and kill anything that's in them blocks. You have to be careful with that because you can kill your gnomes. But you can also use it as traps. Now, I'm not going to get too elaborate in how detailed you can do these, but you can do some pretty cool stuff. Like you can do that. You have floor hatches. This hatch, excuse me, if I have somebody come over like here, I'll take and let's put the floors down so I can see. All right, we'll go to this stockpile. Let's go to remove designation. Remove designation for the stockpile. Now let's make another stockpile, designate area. This is my way, and I'll only get to do this once. We'll set it there, and then we'll go back, and then I'll hit build, storage, and we'll build a crate. And basically what's going to happen, somebody's going to step on that to pick the crate up to move it. And watch that right there when they do so. I'll put a crate there. Hit space, see somebody's there, it went, see how it popped up. It was just real quick, but it did. It popped up solid. You can change the state of something and make it to where, like I can click on this guy and I can go to change state, and somebody can come and they will change the state to where this is closed, and when you step on it, it's open. See, here they come. It's there now, it's open, or I mean closed. But when somebody steps on this, it'll open. Now, are you seeing floor traps, pit traps, and stuff like that? Yeah, that's exactly what most people use them for. You dig out an area up underneath them, and then you put these over the top, and then when things, you put it in your entryway or somewhere where monsters are going to walk. And then when they get so far, they step on something, and only the person stepping on it is protected for a short time. Everybody else that was following him gets dropped down into the hatch, into the pit. And then you can go into the pit and you can have you can set up a bunch of traps and all that other stuff down in there. Now, if you're building this stuff and you can't see it, sometimes like your linkages, you have to hit the Q key to show and enable and disable the view of them. Q enables them and disables the view, just the view. All right, some other things as far as mechanics that I haven't mentioned yet is that there's an item called a gearbox. What a gearbox is for is you have to use a gearbox in order to change direction with linkages. In other words, your axles and stuff. So you would, like, if I had this box was over here, right here on the map, right here on this dirt floor. Or we'll just hold the mouse there. All right, I would have to put a gearbox here. Or actually, I'd have to put one here. And then come off of it with axles to run into the box. Axles can run directly connect to whatever they're touching. So like these two things, you don't have to go down and then attach to them or anything like that. I've got the two windmills touching each other, so that supplies power to everything. And then an axle in the next block. Anything in the block connecting next to that axle is connected. So an axle, then a lever. There's no axle under that level, just a lever there. But the axle touches the lever becomes part of the mechanism, and then another axle touches the lever on the other side to continuing it off. I don't think you can change direction with a lever, but you can continue working through one. You might be able to. You might try that. I don't know. I mean, it'll give you something to try. I'm not positive. But I do know that you need gearboxes to change the orientation. So if I'm going this way and then I want to go this way, I would need a gearbox here and then a lever, or I mean an axle, and then continue on. All right, power. Cranks, you can build a hand crank. That means that a gnome has to go out and you have to spin that hand crank in order to apply power, and then you tell somebody to switch something, and somebody else will go out and switch something while that gnome's applying power. It's very tedious. You don't want to do it. As soon as you get windmills, I wouldn't even mess with this stuff until you get windmills. Once you get windmills, then you can start doing it. Windmills supply 20 units of power to everything. And then you've got a steam engine, which you get later, which supplies 200 units of power, but we're not even going to talk about that because I've never used them and I don't have them learned. It's way like one of the last things you learn. So it's very far off. Linkages. Linkages absorb 1 unit of power per linkage. So if I've got a 20 power producing windmill, and then I've got 10 linkages to get to whatever the device is, albeit up, down, left, right. Yes, if you place a gearbox, you can go down a Z level directly underneath that and use a vertical axle and keep going down with vertical axles to supply power to lower and upper levels. But every single one of these axles sucks up 1 unit of power. A gearbox uses 3, so you have to put this math, this calculations into your construction. Like previously here where I'd only built 1, well, these only need these hatches only use 10 power, but these blocks, these mechanical walls, use 20 power. So this produces 20 power, 19 left, 18 left, 17, 16 left. For this, it had 16 power. It wasn't enough, so I had to build another windmill. Now I've got an abundance of like 14 extra power or so, but, that's what you got to do. This one only used 10, 11, 12, and then 2 more, 14. So 120 power producing windmill will supply enough power for 1 hatch. And I could have used a lever here instead of a plate or whatever. Could have done whatever I wanted to. You can build an entire floor out of these hatches and then have a guy come in when you get a bunch of enemies in. You can have this lever way off over here if you want to, as long as you got enough power for all the linkages. And then you can have a guy come in and he can pull the lever, and when he pulls the lever, all the hatches will open up. Now you have to remember each hatch is 10 power. So for every 2 hatches you need another windmill, but you can build large windmill farms and it's fine. One note about windmills, they have to be outside and the sky has to be available above them. You can't build anything over top of them, so they cannot be built in stores. They can't be, anywhere there's a wall or a ceiling or anything over top of them, they cannot be built. Steam engines, on the other hand, can, but windmills cannot. Hand cranks can be built anywhere, but windmills must be outside and available to air above them. The floor hatch, I've got it here on the ground, as you can see. In order to put a floor hatch down, there cannot be a floor, not a wall. There cannot be a floor tile in that spot. Now this floor hatch, if you look, it shows that it's dug out right there, because when I placed this floor hatch, it got rid of that. All I did was remove the floor. I just went to terrain, remove floor, right there, and I removed the floor. Now I don't know if anything can fall down in that because there's a floor block there, but I'd already had that dug out. I don't know if it removed the floor or not, but I think it removed everything. I think it's all gone. So I think that if something walked out here and stood on this, it would fall through. But I'm not sure. I usually dig a hole. I'll dig a hole and then usually dig down another hole and probably go down two levels or so, maybe a level or 2, dig out a square hole with no entrance, no exit, and then I'll put this in a hallway above that. That way anything that walks in, it steps on the floor trap. Then I can have, like 4 or 5 floor traps, and then you can flip a lever and with the lever you can put a mechanical wall at the front, or put one of these and have your guy walk over it and step on it, however you want to do it. I mean, you can check out the wiki at www.gnomoriawiki.com. And in there is an entire section going over a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, so you don't have to keep rewatching this video unless you want to. But you can go in there and you can check, and it explains all this. And it even has a couple demonstrations, but it's not the detail of what you can do. Check out the Gnomoria forums. You'll find a lot of information there about these, further detailed ways to use these things. Another thing that I'm not really covering, but that I will, mention, are traps. You can go to, and in order to put all this stuff, you do not have to come up here and make individual pieces. All you do is right click, go to build, go to mechanism, and then you can choose everything you want to build from here. Like if I wanted to build another windmill, I'd click windmill. It's going to tell me I don't have anything. I've got 2 mechanism bases built, but I don't have anything left. So I can then just go to build and then put it somewhere, and it'll automatically queue all of the parts that are needed into these machine shops for you, so that you don't have to manually go in there and do it. I've placed all of these parts out here using the build menu, and then I just sat and watched, and my tankers and my artisans, they went and built all the parts, carried them all out here. And now I will say this, it took about 4 real days in order to build, or 4 game days just to build this little bit. So it takes a while because there's a lot of components involved. They have to make bars, you have to have copper, you have to have, for the levers and the boxes and stuff, they used copper to make them, so the linkages require copper because it uses rods, which require copper bars and stuff like that. So you should have at least copper when you start doing this, or some kind of metal alloy. Now, okay, that is tinkering. Traps. I was explaining traps. So traps are built the same way. You go to build, Actually, I think it's under mechanism, maybe mechanism, device, hump, switch. No, maybe it's not. Oh, there they are, self-powered traps. Now, a spike trap, you have spike traps and blade traps. They both do about the same thing. You can lay one. I'll hit build just to show you. See the spikes? All right. So there's a spike trap. Something steps on this tile, the spikes pop up out of the ground and hurt that target. But the problem with me and traps that I don't like about traps, let's show you the blade trap also, is that there's a blade trap. Now let's go in close so we can see them real good. All right, you can see the gist of it. Spikes come up out of the ground, the blade trap, two blades swing, and it hurts. They hurt things. Anything that steps on them takes some damage. But the problem is that they only function one time. That's it. And then a tinkerer has to go in and reset them. The problem with that is that if you've got like an elaborate maze built up with traps in it, what will happen is that the monsters will come running through, they'll spring a trap, trigger another trap, keep going, and while they're coming, working their way through, your tinkers will try to go and reset the traps because they have to be reset. Now, there are ways to avoid that. I'm not going to discuss that now because I'm not really going over traps in this. I was going over mechanisms. But it's a pain in the butt to try and stop them from doing so. I mean, basically, you have to make sure that nobody has tinkering or repair traps enabled or something. There's somewhere that you can set it up. Maybe it's in options. I can't remember. But there's somewhere that you can set it up to where they won't reset the traps, or just disable that job from anybody when you get an ambush. When you have people coming in, let them go through, trigger off all your traps after the combat's finished, then set the job back to enable mechanisms, and then let your guys go in and they'll reset all the traps. Now, traps are used over and over and over again, but they only function one time per setting. So click, it goes off, it's now inactive. A tinker or somebody with the ability to reset them has to come in, reset the trap, leave, and then something can step on it again. So it's kind of like a real trap in the real world type deal that they're not automated, is what I'm saying. There we go. All right. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's everything you need to know to get started with mechanisms, at least. There's not really a whole lot of difficulty involved in it once you understand the basics of how much power each thing uses, how to use gearboxes, which you'll use a gearbox, like I said, to change the direction. Now, if I wanted to go up, I would have to put a gearbox on this level, go up, and then put linkages, these axles, a vertical axle above it. Now, there's two types of axles. There's the horizontal axle, which it's all in linkage. There's vertical, and then the axle. Axle is horizontal axle. Vertical goes up and down. Gearbox is a way to change the direction between the two. Switches, you've got levers and pressure plates we went over, devices, mechanical wall hatches, and pumps. A pump pumps water, and they're built anywhere that you can apply power to, and they're used for things like emptying water out of a pit that you want to build in, or transferring water. What a lot of people use them for is a safe way to transfer water into underground farms. Like if you want to build the mushroom farm in this game, you have to do it underground. In order to build the mushroom farm underground, you have to apply water to those tiles so that they become muddy or whatnot, so that you can then grow on them. You can't just grow on a regular unwet tile underground. A lot of people will just breach some water, let it pour out, and then they'll put the wall back. Other people will do floodgate things and stuff like that using mechanical walls. You can use this as a floodgate. I can change, excuse me, I can change its powered right now, so it's down, but I can change its setup to up, like so, having somebody come out and pull the lever, and it'll be up, and I could build that and then mine out the area behind it so that water runs up to it, use it as a floodgate. And then all I'd have to do is pull the lever to go down, water can then pour out, pop the lever again, it'll go back up and stop the water so that you don't flood your whole place, that type of deal. So that's another use for these mechanical walls, and that's what the pumps are for. I could then take, and you can put a pump, and a pump will suck water out of one area and squirt it out into another, and you can activate it with a lever, turn the pump on, it'll suck water out, squirt it out. It's another way to go around it without having to use floodgates and whatnot. So that's pretty much it. That's everything I know, at least. There's a lot more that you can use them. As I've said in multiple videos, I don't use these. I don't use mechanics. I'm more into the military part of the game. I like to build up an army. Like here, I've got 8 guys, 8 soldiers, and then 2 marksmen, and let them defend it off. And they just killed like let's see, events. What did we kill? We killed 2 ogres, 2 goblins, 3 ogres, 3 ogres and 2 goblins, and a honey badger. Or no, they killed the honey badger, I think. Previous to that, we killed 2 goblins and 3 ogres. So that's the level that my tech is at, my kingdom worth, is that I'm getting a couple goblins and a few ogres each wave. But it does get a lot more. You start getting 2-headed ogres. I've killed like 6 or 7 mants, had them come in, I killed them. And I'll keep building my army up more and more. And they're training, as you can see. They're getting built up. Ben, his skills. Yeah, he's up to 94 with his axe and 92 with his hammer. My shield guys are coming along. Pack and my other guys, they taunt now. Pack's at 73 axe and 70 shield. So they're getting a little better. And I use that type of method to defend. I have built a military. I let them do it, tinkering and mechanics and stuff like that. That's more for fun in this game than it is anything else. It's not really extremely useful. The one thing that it is useful for is if you find out that you've got like a bunch of ranged that you want to be able to level up quickly. I could build a pit trap in here, and then I could take and cover it with hatches. And then when monsters come in, I could pull a lever and get them to drop in there. And then I could build up an angle thing here where my guys would still be a level above them, but my ranged can get down here, and I set them down here, and when they come down here, they'll start shooting at the goblins, and they can shoot them and kill them, and that will help increase their ranged. You actually, as I've said, get a lot more experience by killing and shooting and hurting something else than you do by training. Now, training works over a period of years. It'll level you up into the hundreds, but and beyond. But it's very it's just a supplemental thing. It's just a supplement to combat. Combat gives you far more experience, so it's the far more preferred method of leveling your guys up. But yeah, that's mechanics. Hope it helped. Hope it it cleared up anything any questions you might have about it. I'm going to cover safe mining in the next video. So if you enjoyed this or learned something from this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day.